Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I'm Liz. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to all of you guys. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. We are grateful for the opportunity to be able to just talk a little bit about who we are and what got us to where we are today. I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with our company, so Dave and I thought that it would be a good idea to just spend some time and go through what our story is and how we got here today. So I'll start and then Dave will take over and we'll just kind of bounce back and forth. So if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. And I'm just warning you all, though there will probably be some tears shed. We've tried to tell this story so many times, but we always kind of end up crying. So we're not crybabies. It just was really hard, guys. It was just really, really hard. So Dave and I met while working in a copy room downtown in Salt Lake City at the Curtin McConkie law firm. There was a time where I wanted to be an attorney, but soon after working there, I realized that I did not, in fact, want to be an attorney. That's why I ended up getting my master's in English. But Dave and I worked together, and really that was the first experience where we both learned that teamwork is really and truly that makes all the difference when it comes to trying to be successful in the workplace. And we also learned there that that's if you give it a chance, that's where you can become just best friends with those people, and those will be the closest people that you'll have in your life. And so I eventually convinced Dave to fall in love with me. That was the plan from the very beginning. And it did take 3 years for him to eventually put a ring on it, but it happened. So a lot of people ask us where the name Albion came from, and Dave and I would hang out a lot up at the Albion Basin up in Little Cottonwood Canyon. Are any of you guys familiar with it up there? So a lot of people go up there for the wildflowers in the summer, and we would go up there and hike and bike, and then in the winters we would ski. And then it also is where Dave told me in a moment of confidence where I really thought that he was going to propose to me. And to be honest, we hadn't even held hands at this point, but in my head I was like, he's going to propose to me. He told me I was his best friend, so that was really depressing, but I was holding out for more, and it eventually came around, and then it is where he also proposed and where we had our wedding reception. So the Albion Basin is very, very special to us. So after we graduated, I got my master's, Dave got his BFA in graphic design. We moved to San Diego for me to start a PhD program. I wanted to be an English professor, and that was the plan A. Like, I knew that I wanted to do that. Dave was going to be a successful graphic designer, and we were going to live in paradise. And that was the most important thing. And meanwhile, my parents, while I was growing up, they had a clothing manufacturing company in Guatemala. And there was two things that I knew that I never wanted to do when I grew up. And one of them was to work with my spouse, because I saw my parents working together. And the other one was I never wanted to be in the clothing business. So that did not work out, luckily for us. But Dave and I kind of settled down in San Diego. We were living our best life, by the beach. We were surfing and swimming, and we didn't have kids, and everything was wonderful. And then quickly thereafter, about 2 or 3 years later, we had the wonderful news that we were expecting twins, which was so exciting. And right around the same time, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So it was just really this crazy, crazy time in our life. My mom moved in with us to get her cancer treatment, and I was put on bed rest. And to be honest, it was a rough time. It was really, really hard. I just ate a lot of food and watched Gilmore Girls, and was trying to prepare for my qualifying exams. Meanwhile, Dave was bringing home the bacon and just like growing and starting to do some really cool stuff in graphic design. And everything kind of just came to a head when the twins were born and my mom was trying to recover from her chemotherapy. My dad came up to spend some time with us while my mom was recovering, and it became pretty clear that the business that my parents had built was going through a rough spot. And if you are an entrepreneur, you know that you're going to have good times and you're going to have bad times, and it was pretty clear that a rough time was soon coming in. And this was around 2006. So if you can remember back then, the economy was starting to shift, and the quotas were lifted so that China could in fact import as many things as they wanted into the US. And up until that point, my parents had been contractors. They had 3 factories, and they were sewing for Victoria's Secret, they were sewing for Janssen, they were sewing for Nike, they were sewing NFL jerseys. And all of my growing up, I never had to buy a swimsuit or anything fitness. Like, that's what my parents did. And so anyway, my dad came up to visit, and he was talking to Dave, and it became pretty clear that my dad needed some help down there, especially with, the economy, and then with my mom being sick, and it just kind of was this perfect storm, and he needed some help. And so I'll let Dave take it from here.
Hi, how's it going? So we decided to move down with Liz's parents to Guatemala, and shortly thereafter it got pretty wild when their biggest client moved to China within a couple months. And so we were scrambling to find work for our factory. And so we had these 3 huge factories, and we knew that we only had a certain amount of days until the factories would be empty of work. And so we worked really hard, but at the same time we had to downsize, and we just kept trying to find more work, and then we sucked Liz into it and she was trying to find work too, and we found some work. It wasn't the best work, and it was hard, and so we went through a period of time where we just kept shrinking our factories. And also the work was changing, and so what it forced us to do, all we were doing is cutting and sewing. So our clients would send down fabric and trims, and all we have to do is cut and sew it and send it back. But now people wanted, as you guys know, if you guys are doing your own stuff, that you can get a finished package now, where you get the entire garment finished and you don't have to worry about the trims. And that's what everybody needed. So it forced us to change our business model into where we started buying things, buying all the trims and buying all the fabric, and selling a finished product to these companies. And then it got to the point where companies were like, you have to design our clothes, and we'll pick from whatever you design if it's good, and we'll buy it from you. So we went through this period of just refining the process to the point where it got really hard. I don't know if you want to add a little bit. It got to the point where we were just designing to the point where we were like, we can do this ourselves. Like, we've tried to contract work with other people. We've tried all these other things. Our plan C is, let's just come up with some of our own stuff. And Liz, maybe you want to talk about.
So our factories went from about 1,800 operators to like 1,400 to 1,000 to 500. It just kept on shrinking. And these are people that I had known since I was a little kid, since I was 8 years old. And so obviously it was really difficult to see us letting go a lot of these people. And so lucky for us, Dave had the conviction and the foresight to problem solve. And the only solution that we really saw at that moment was that the only people that we could really depend upon was ourselves. And in a way, it was sort of like those old copy room days, right? Where I was like, okay, Dave, no one else is gonna send this fax. It's me and you. And so we just kind of figured it out. And it was a lot of trial and error, and a lot of error actually at the beginning, but a lot of innovation. And Dave really had that foresight to just figure out, and I'll say, for those of you who are looking into being entrepreneurs, you really have to be able to pivot quickly. And for us, it was the tried and true was to do the contract work, and that was what my dad's go-to was. He had had a very successful career just doing it the way that he was used to doing it. But lucky for us, Dave kind of saw the writing was on the wall, and we knew that the only way that we could survive was if we did it ourselves. And we had a couple friends from high school who had started a clothing company called Shabby Apple, and they did dresses in Salt Lake, and they sold them online. And they were a digitally native company. This was like 2009, 2010. And usually the initial orders that my parents had taken for years and years were like 100,000 units, 200,000 units. And like Dave was saying, our whole business model changed, where instead of sewing for 200,000 units and spreading it out over 5 years, all of a sudden we were doing 200 dresses of one style and 200 dresses of another style. And our operators had to become really well cross-trained, which is such a huge advantage for us today, because these operators are the same ones that we have, but they learned to be able to change machines on a whim. Like, they would stay and do one operation for, 2 minutes, and they would run across to the other side of the factory and use a different machine. And they're very, very skilled people, which helped us a lot. But anyway, so we started sewing dresses for them, and then, they started asking us to design dresses, and so we designed them and we did them on consignment, and we saw some success there, and we also saw a lot better margin, a lot better return than what we were used to. Sewing contractors, typically you're lucky if you make between 50 cents and $1 a unit that you sew. So it is very, very competitive business, and the only way to make money initially was to be able to produce hundreds of thousands of units, right? It was just getting that efficiency, and so completely different business model, but the margins were there, and we thought, well, maybe this is something that we could look into. And Dave was thinking, hey, our factories are really good at sewing swimsuits and fitness wear. That's what we should be doing. And so Dave came up, I think we always say the other one did, but I'm pretty sure Dave came up with the name Albion, and he, with his graphic design skills, came up with a really cool logo. And we decided that we were going to try to start like a fitness swimwear line on this other person's website. And what was really cool was there was a demand, because nobody else, as soon as they saw there was a swimsuit, it was one of our swimsuits that they were looking at. We didn't have to compete with any of the dresses on the website. And in fact, we did so well that they wanted to start their own swim line. And so we were sewing it, but there was a little conflict of interest there, and we noticed that, now the business that we thought that had a lot of potential for us was dwindling, because a lot of the work was, or a lot of the business was shifting towards, a lot of different things. And so right around that time, we decided that it was time to move our family back to the States, and we moved back, and we were still sewing for other companies. We sewed for Callaway, we sewed for BB Sport, who really was like the trailblazer when it came to wearing tight leggings. Yeah, I bet did you love it? You loved it. And so, yeah, and I remember thinking, like, why would anyone wear leggings? It was like so crazy, like 10 years ago, right? And now I feel like that's what everybody wears.
I'm from Sweden, and so like I would buy it whenever I came over and bring it back to Sweden.
Oh, yeah. Well, they had a lot of bling, right? Yes. There was a lot of bling. There was a lot of sequins and a lot of tights. So anyway, we learned a lot. Like, we learned where to buy the best fabric that was made in the US. We learned where to buy the trims. We learned all of these different things. And eventually BB Sport went out of business, and this new place called City Creek Center was opening up in Salt Lake, and they were looking for a local company to open up there that did swims and fitness. And someone told them about us, and we had no experience whatsoever. I worked at B. Dalton Bookstore for 6 months, I think, when I was in high school, and at Crate and Barrel for a year, and that was about, did you ever work retail? Yeah, we had no experience in retail whatsoever, but it seemed like a good opportunity, and so we jumped on it. And so that was 2012, and that kind of takes us to how Albion came to be. Do you want to start I don't know how to do this. Did it turn off? Oh, okay. Okay. So when we were preparing for this, we decided that the best way to approach it to help you guys figure out, how to start a business, how do you want to do this, is to just kind of walk you through what we did. And that's not to say that this works for every single person. It really is something that's different for everyone. It depends on what your product is, what your culture is, all of these different things. But all we can do is kind of show you and tell you how we did it and how it is, it's working out for us. So when we think of Albion, Dave and I and our partner Mike is here in the back. We have a pretty clear idea of what we think our company is, but it's always good to check in, right, with what other people are saying. And so what we did was we reached out to different business partners that we've worked with, we reached out to customers, and we reached out to our team. And we wanted to ask them, like, what does Albion mean to you? Who is Albion? And so you can see, I just asked a question on social media, on Instagram, and I just said, what does Albion mean to you? And it was really satisfying to see the answers that came in, because I feel like they were on par with the message that we've been trying to promote. And so you can read through these, but high quality, excellent fit, great customer service, passion, quality, comfort, and style, family-based, cares for employees, local company, high quality products, Utah, from the heart and unique, more eco-friendly. Those are some of the things that our customers said. And then I reached out to some of our friends. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the Bucket List family, Jess and Garrett G. They travel all over the world. They do some really cool stuff. They've got 2 or 3 million followers on Instagram. They're kind of a big deal on that platform, but we're lucky to call them really good friends. And I texted them and I just said, hey guys, we're teaching this class. Can you give us some feedback? When you think of Albion, what do you think of? And what was really cool is that you have to think, a lot of these people that we work with are really busy. Like, they have so many different things going on, but at the heart of the message that I think Dave and I want to share with you today is that if you are your authentic self, that people will love you for who you really are. And that's really how you can build strong relationships in business and at work and obviously in other places. But what was cool was that Garrett just answered back right away. And he said, before I knew you guys, I liked the fact that I could see a suit or pants or a product, and without seeing a logo, just know that that is Albion. And then right below, his wife, Jessica, said, and now knowing you guys, I know that your whole drive and purpose is helping those you love, your employees. Not many companies like that are out there. And then she just said that she loves that on Instagram. She knows that if someone is responding or someone's posting, that it's me. It's not someone who works for us. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there before we started, because I think it's really important that when you're building a business, you don't want to be thinking about so much as a business, but you want to be thinking about what's the brand, what's the culture, what's the community that you're trying to build. And if you've taken any marketing classes, you know that there are 5 Ps to marketing. And so we're going to go through those 5 Ps pretty quickly, and we'll focus more on the ones that we feel like were very impactful for us as we developed this business. And the first one that we're going to start on is people. Here are just some pictures of some people who are important for Albion. On the top left corner, we've got Jose, who's our embroiderer. In the middle, we've got 3 of our design team members and a project manager. On the far right, we have Maria, who has been with us for, honestly, I think since I was 10 years old. She's awesome. She is a supervisor of her line. She started out just as an operator, but now she's a supervisor. In the center, we've got some friends that are influencers that we get to go travel with and do some really cool stuff with. And then on the far left, you see Dave on the bottom left, me in the middle, and then our partner Mike on the bottom right. And these are all people who are integral to building the Albion brand. We lovingly refer to our team, the people who work with us, as the A-team. There's different facets to the A-team. We've got our Guatemala team, we've got our USA team, and we have our business partners. Our Guatemala team is very unique in that they are really and truly the best at what they do. Like, I'm not just saying that, like they are. When we were whittling down our factory from 2,000 to, I think we got down to like 25 people at one point, we had the best sewers. We picked the best of the best that we knew that we would need with us before, so that we could grow again. So we had the people who were most trained in quality control. We had the people that approved NFL jerseys before they went off. We had the people who could engineer the lines. We had the people who could sew all of the different machines, the head of all of these different things. We kept the cream of the crop. And these people are people that we went through really, really hard times with. Really, really hard times. And this is usually where I start crying, but I'm gonna just dig deep. I'm not gonna go there. But times where really and truly you're just saying goodbye to people that you love so much, and you're just not sure if you're gonna see them again, and you're not sure if they're gonna be taken care of, because you're the one that's responsible for them, and you're the one that's responsible for making sure that their families have food on the table. But these people hung with us and they believed in us. And together we knew that if we worked together that we would be able to do something great, because good things happen to good people. And that was really and truly a mantra that we had when we were going through those difficult times. So the A-team in Guatemala is a team composed of very highly skilled individuals with years and years of industry experience, okay? On the flip side, we have our USA team, okay, USA team, our United States team, the A-team. And those are individuals who have honestly young. You guys are your age. They're girls who, a lot of them started working with us while they were still in college. Started working with us at 19 or 20, and we make sure that they get their degrees because that's really important. But they've been with us for 6-7 years now, and they have built this company from the ground up. And these are girls, for the most part. We've got, I think, 4 guys who work for us now, but mostly girls who have 0 experience until they started with Albion, right? Like, they didn't know how to lead teams, like they didn't know how to sell stuff, they didn't know how to do inventory, they didn't know how to run reports, none of that, but we all figured it out together. And I feel like same thing, like there's such a special bond there because so much of that learning, there was so much love there and a lot of trial and a lot of error, but it just has been this really cool experience where we've just been able to kind of grow up together. And at the heart of it, they know who we are, right? Like they have been such an integral part of building our brand and building our culture that they know it. And these are girls that you could ask them anything about Albion and they will always give you the right answer because they helped create it from the very beginning. And then on the other side, we've got business partners, and those people, like our team, we search for people who were collaborative, we search for people who had our same vision, we search for people who really had the same journey in mind. And that was what was so great, is when we met Mike, our business partner, we had had many offers at that point for people who wanted to be a part of Albion. Like there was that potential. People knew that we were going places and that we were going to be a successful company, but to be honest, none of them were people that we wanted to hang out with. None of them were people that we wanted to go on adventures with and that understood how important this team in Guatemala was to us. Because to be honest, the first thing that a lot of these people said was, okay, well, we've got to move our work to China. It's a lot cheaper there. But for us, like, we'll never leave Guatemala, right? Like, that's where our heart is, that's where our team is. And so it was really cool to find someone who was like-minded and who was passionate about the same things that we did, so much so that where we actually met him was on a service project in Peru. And we had spent 6 days just working side by side and just doing good. And it wasn't until our last night there that we kind of started talking about business. And I feel like that's really Dave's and mine MO in general, right? Like Albion is always a part of our everyday work, but we like to have a lot of fun, and it's not why we do the things that we do. And so at the end of the day, I just wanted to, I didn't have that thing there. I just wanted to say that when you are building your team, you need to find people who are like-minded. You need to ask yourself, like, what's their leadership style? What's important to you and what's important to them? Because one of the things that Dave brought up is it all starts with you, right? Like whatever your culture is, whatever is important to you, whatever your work ethic is, like that's the kind of person that you're going to attract. And so if you want it, you need to be it. And it's really important that you keep that in mind as you're building your team. Okay, that's my part. Now Dave's gonna head over and talk about product.
Yeah, I think just like what Liz is saying at the end there, it really is, people watch you. And that's what we've noticed is really when you're, it seems like you guys are all here because you're going to be entrepreneurs or you already are entrepreneurs. But when you put yourself out there, people see the good and people also see the bad. And I think what's been cool with us is there's been a lot of people along the way that have kind of just lifted us up. And I think it's because we've tried to treat people fairly. And that goes a long way. Like with City Creek, this big mall, they have this reputation of being pretty tough on their tenants. But I think they've always been very nice to us, and I think it's how we initially got in the deal with them and how we acted. Okay, product. I know we've been talking a lot about this factory, and it's been something that a lot of people don't have, Not everybody has this factory that can produce clothes, and that's something that is a huge advantage to us. But at the time, it didn't feel like an advantage. It felt so hard to feel it, but we used it as an asset to us. And I think the one thing that everybody should do is look into your lives and see what assets you have And maybe it's something totally different. Maybe, I know like Huntsman here, the Huntsman Center, I think he was working in a totally different business, and he applied what he was working in that business to a totally different business. And that was some asset that he had that nobody else had. And so whatever it is, maybe, one of your parents is a mechanic and you have all this mechanical assets that maybe you haven't even thought about, or whatever it is, something that's in your wheelhouse, a product, something that's accessible, another thing, something that maybe you have an advantage because you're closer to than everybody else. Something and these are just things that have helped us, is just to be authentic. It's easy for us to sew the clothes that we want, because one thing, Liz, our mantra is if Liz likes it and Liz will wear it, then we make it. But it makes it super authentic, and it makes it something that we really stand behind. And the worst thing you can do is make a product that you don't want to wear or you don't want to promote because you can't stand by it. But the best thing is when you can wear something and you're like, yeah, like I feel so good in this. Like that's an amazing thing. Another thing is just solving a problem. Obviously, something that you guys maybe you just want in your lives. Something that's helped us is quality and design. And there's like the lowest you can either, what we have found is that if we make something of quality, even if it costs a little bit more, it's always been better. It's an easier thing because we know we can sell it. And sometimes if you're going for that bargain price product, it might be cheaper, but in the long run, there's this liability of having something that doesn't have quality and other people don't value.
That's why I think what that couple brought out, it's two things that you addressed. It was the fact that people could see your products and know that it was you, and then also that it was a real person. Because people these days, for you to attract customers to stay and don't buy from China, is that you create that effector that they're attaching to you. People follow people. And so I think that's a big one for you being a Utah company, that you keep that up, that familiar, and you have such a strong why, and so that attracts people. So I think that's one of your big strengths with your brand and why people are buying, even though it might be a bit more expensive, that takes out Amazon or other companies.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're saying too. Like at first, like the people, like you're saying, and people are watching you, and especially when you're starting, the way you treat people and the way you act makes a big difference. And the more authentic you can be, whatever it is, I mean, I wouldn't try to be something, just don't try to be something you're not, just be the most authentic you, and it's effortless when it's like that. Let's see, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, here's some of our early products. Another thing that I think we'd bring up is, you look at some of these and you're like, oh, like we've gotten a lot better. And another thing is, don't beat yourself up, okay? Like Rome wasn't built in a day. Like the first time we got like our skirts, we made these skirts. I took this very personally, but they were like terrible. And like we got this focus group and they were just like, you shouldn't sell any of this. And we're like, we just got this retail store, and like we're not gonna have anything in there if we don't like put it out. But it was like, they're like, no, this is terrible stuff. Like you can't sell it. Like, but it was quality stuff, but it just wasn't. I don't know. Like, anyway.
Did you want to wear it?
I wore it. I mean, I wore it, but I'm not saying I should have. But I wore it.
But anyways, what I'm saying is like, this is the other part of the spectrum, is Rome wasn't built in a day, and we have this idea that all three of us have of like how the store should look and like what our product should look like, and we haven't hit that idea yet. And because it's like, it's hard to get to that idea in your head, and you shouldn't beat yourself up over it, especially when you're starting out. You should say, okay, here's what we got, here's what we're gonna do, we're gonna get better. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and it might take you a little bit of time to get to where the thing looks in your head. And it's just about your attitude towards it and like your resourcefulness. Okay, so that was it's got a little personal there.
Okay, the third one is place. If any of you guys have followed us this year, our theme for 2019 was going places, and we've been to a lot of places. And I just wanted to kind of emphasize today that your where, like, you know, where you're going, where you currently are, it really determines your journey. And I feel like sometimes we flip it, right? Like the journey determines like where you end up at the end. But I guess from our standpoint, we just want you to know that this whole, whatever it is that you're trying to do, you know, if we're talking about like how to be more financially conservative, if, you know, if you're trying to like figure out budgets, or if you're trying to start a new business, all of those things, it all comes down to the journey and what you're trying to get out of it, because that's gonna determine so very much. For us, our journey started in Guatemala, but because that's where our history is, that's where our heart is, it's really our why, going back to what you were saying earlier. But a big part of that as well is Utah, right? Like that's where Dave and I met. We ended up opening our store actually just right next door to where Dave and I met at City Creek. And it really had just come full circle. I remember that first day that we opened, it was just so crazy how it all just seemed like it was building up to that one moment. From a business perspective, we chose to open a retail location, and we decided to go online. And I'll never forget that the first space that we had at City Creek was actually a temporary space, unbeknownst to us. Like, I think we just didn't really look at the contract very closely, but City Creek always intended to put a permanent tenant in that location, but they just weren't going to be ready in time. And so that's where they were pretty specific about who they were looking for. But what was so cool was that we worked so hard that when that temporary lease was over, City Creek came back to us and they wanted us to open a permanent space. And at that moment, we had to make a couple really hard decisions, because what were we going to do for 4 or 5 months till that new store was built, right? And lucky for us, we had a graphic designer who was very, very tech savvy. And Dave, same thing. You know, he's like, what are we going to do? We've got a problem. How are we going to solve it? We're going to start a website. And that's what he did. Like, he actually built a website for us. And I think the website, we started it like January 1st, 2012. And we got more sales in that one day online than we did, I think, in like 2 weeks at our retail location. And it became really clear to us, like, wow, like we've got something here, like this could work out. And you know, we were trying to keep our employees busy, and we started shipping things out of our garage, like literally, guys, like we had boxes in our garage and a lot of dents in our car because those boxes would fall over. But we also, we were like, well, gosh, like we've committed to this retail location, like what are we gonna do? Was that a big mistake? And initially our thoughts were, you know what, it's okay, we're gonna just make this a showroom. It's only 670 square feet. It's not a huge commitment. We got a pretty good deal on the lease. We'll be fine. Yeah, it's not in the best part of the mall, but we'll make the best out of it. And we did for about 6 months. We did pretty well. And at that point, we realized that we had a decision to make. We were either gonna just only go online, or we were gonna try to make retail work. And what was cool is we brought in some people that had some experience, and that little store killed it. It killed it. Like after about 1.5 years, we had to open up a whole office across the street to be able to warehouse our product. And then after that, we had to get another warehouse, and then we had to move locations, and nobody could believe it. And I think that Dave and I were just like so surprised, and we didn't really know what the expectations should be, but we had friends who were in commercial real estate, and we would tell them like what we were making per square foot, and they'd be like, what? That's crazy. And we're like, wait, really? That's really good? And they're like, yeah. And so it was just like all of these little reminders that, wow, I think we're on the right path. Let's keep doing this. But what was so great about being able to do the online is we obviously grew through social media, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But the important part of the store was it gave us an opportunity to get to know our customer, to understand what she wanted, to let her know how loved she was and how appreciated she was. And it also was a really easy way for us to get really quick customer feedback. And so the online location and the retail location really worked hand in hand for us. So yeah, that's place.
I just say the last, as I keep doing this, but the last thing on place is you guys live in the best time in history for being able to get a product to market. Like 20 years ago, all the big retailers like JCPenney, Sears, Nordstrom, they had all the power to decide who was able to sell their goods. And you guys now, you guys can bypass everybody and you can go direct to market and just use that. Like it is a great opportunity. Okay, price. I'll talk a little bit about this. Find your perfect match. We just try to throw in a picture in there. Just kind of, anyways.
Just some eye candy. For
Just really try to match your brand. What we know is usually you can go down. It's easy to go down in price, but it's really hard to go up. So the more you can kind of like keep whatever that quality is, and you match up that price to that quality. I know Liz, I was a little nervous, and Liz was like, no, this stuff is good. Like the fabric's good, everything's good. Here's the price that we need. And people will buy it. And you have to have that faith that it's going to work. And another thing is we were selling it ourselves, and we made the whole experience nice. And you should compensate yourself for that. Don't sell yourself short. Some of the things, we've been approached, especially at the beginning when we had that temporary store, like Costco approached us, and that was like an idea we had, like, right? But I mean, looking back, that would have been really hard if we had gone down that route. But maybe it would have made sense. And I'm not saying that that's a bad route to go, but just make sure you know what your story is, and make sure that you know that like you're going to be in this for a really long time. So make sure that whatever it is, you're super comfortable with the outcome. And price is a big point on that. And you just have to have conviction that whatever your product is, the price matches up.
Along those lines, we do only carry Albion in our stores, but this year we started adding accessories, and it was really important for us from a business standpoint to make sure that whatever products we have in the store match up to our brand, right? So we have like Tom sunglasses in there. We want to have like a higher quality product because we feel like we're offering a higher quality product ourselves, and so I think that's really important. For promotion, so we were able to get in the game pretty early on with Instagram and influencers, like earlier than a lot of people were. And because of that, we grew really, really quickly on social media. We were able to reach out to influencers and give them a free pair of pants, and they would post for free. Good luck trying to get that to happen today. That's not how it is anymore. But what was really cool is it was also a time where a lot of people were growing. And I don't know if you saw it, like 3 slides back there on the bottom left corner, that was Cara Loren, who, she's got like 1.5 million followers now, but she only had like 15,000 followers, I think, when we started working with her. And what was really cool is we found these different partners that realized that we had something to offer each other. And I think that that's a key component to having any successful business relationship, is you want to make sure that you guys are both bringing the same amount of goodness to the table. And so we were able to build some really cool relationships with influencers who are a pretty good size now, who people know from all over the country. Like right here, you've got JC, you've got Zoe Laz, and you've got Aspen Overt. I think between the 3 of them, they probably have like 5 or 6 million followers. And these are girls that we consider really good friends. I have lunch with Aspen every single month. These are just really rad girls. But what was crazy last year is we saw all these national brands picking them up, and they were all over digital media, right? And like, it's just so crazy. Like, these are just 3 Utah girls, right? And I think that what has been really cool is the spirit of collaboration, just helping build everybody up, and everyone has just kind of found a place. I would say that one of the big things that we've done is we have tried to build a community and a brand that people understand like what our purpose is. And going back to this like going places thing, is we go places with our friends. And every year for 6 years now, in January, we go on a huge adventure, and we bring our favorite people. Like, we don't bring influencers that we think just have a lot of followers. We bring people that are fun and that we know that we're gonna have a good time with. And what's awesome is there's no contract there. Like, you have to tag us, we have to tag you. It's just our favorite people coming together, and it's really organic, and it's just a love fest. And it is the coolest thing because it has helped us grow exponentially. And we know that it has really helped a lot of our friends as they've gone through this process too. But I feel like if you're authentic, if you're really clear right from the beginning, like what your expectations are, then everything really and truly does work out. we try to have a lot of control over our social media. Like I still do our Instagram because it's really important for me that people know that if they're going to get a response, that they know that the person who's talking knows what they're talking about. And I like it because I feel like I have a communication with 500,000 people. Like if any of you guys have a question, you know that it will be taken care of. Like I care, and I want everyone to know that I really care. Dave is so involved with our design and still establishing the aesthetic of this company and what direction it's going in. And that's what we promote, right? We promote this aesthetic that we believe in being sophisticated and classy and like timeless designs, but they're still very functional. And that has always just fed into this brand building and this community building that we're trying to do as well. These are just some pictures of one of the trips that we took this year. We all went to New Zealand and Australia, and if you haven't been, you need to go. These places were so rad. We had so much fun, but it was like action adventure trip. Like I don't think I knew what we were getting ourselves into. Like we were jumping off cliffs, we were like whitewater rafting, we were doing all these crazy things, but at the end of the day, you can see in this middle picture, it was just like family time. We all gathered around a table, we made dinner for ourselves. We swapped stories about the highs of the days, the lows of the days, and it just was really fun. Like these are some of our best friends, and that's one of the coolest parts about building a business and building a brand is if you do it right, which I think we really have, you end up spending time with people that you really care about all the time. Dave, do you want to take data?
Yeah. And just along those lines too, Liz's family loves to throw parties, and they always have. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's where I go for Christmas. My aunt is married, so that's where the party's at.
Yeah, and what just play to your strengths. Like we like to throw parties, and like we like to be social, and maybe that's not your strength. Maybe it's something else, but like we have integrated that in our partner Mike. He likes to have a good time, and we've integrated that into our story, and we've made it part of our business. And the more authentic you can have an experience and you can give people, I think the more receptive they are, and that's definitely more so now than before. And Mike should be speaking to this. He's really helped us with our data, projections, trends, and overall health of our company. Right now, if you guys might be really on the creative end of the spectrum or on the analytical end, but everybody can benefit from the large data that is so accessible now. Like you have these, you have the Shopify that gives you all this analytics. You have Google that will give you all your analytics, and find the most important information. And there's lots of things out there that will help you understand what is most important for your business and apply it. And 10 years ago, you'd only have these huge companies that would have this, these really smart people that were analyzing this data, but now it's accessible to anybody who starts their business, and just use that. Our design team always looks at the data because that's the way you can really, with that it kind of gives you the structure to design, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't tie your hands. It helps you understand what's working, what's not working, and it's really been helpful for our business. And it really, when in your seat, if you're just starting out, it's just such an advantage that nobody has had in the past, and it really has evened the playing field. So I just say, look into that and figure it out, or get help with somebody else to figure it out, because it'll make what you're doing, it'll show you the path to what works and what doesn't work really fast.
But on the flip side, I will say, make sure you follow your gut too, because I feel like if we had looked at the data, there's no way we would have kept going with Albion at the very beginning. Like there was no reason. At the very beginning when we opened that store, I think we brought in like $12,000, and I think our rent was like 11. So it really did make a whole lot of sense at the beginning, and I'm glad that for the first 4 years of Albion, we really didn't use analytics. We didn't. Like, we were able to see what people were buying, right? And so we did more of that, but we've gotten a lot more complicated. I will say though that once we did start using that data, like, we have grown exponentially. So I think you need both. And And what's cool is we've got a creative genius at Albion that just happens to make really good decisions, whether there's the data behind it or not. So anyway, I just wanted to close with my point, with my part here, just saying that if you ask me what our 5-year business plan is, I would not have that answer for you. As frustrating as that is for our 2 partners here, I think that we are always just like trying new things and willing to go out on a limb to just see how far we can go. But I know that we have the potential to do some really great things because we've got some awesome people on our team to be able to accomplish that. And I'm just grateful to be here. Like, I always wanted to be just doing the things that I love with the people that I love, and I get to do that. So thank you for the opportunity to be here at the U. We love this place. Go Utes. I hope you guys are all like cheering on our football team because we're kind of a big deal, guys. Number 7 in the country, it's kind of a big deal. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, we're happy to answer some. And if you guys, have any, Dave and I will just stand right here. Yeah.
I think it's so interesting that you dove into retail instead of developing like an online platform first and selling through reps or like just going that way. Like, how did you decide we're gonna just open a store and fill it up and get going? Like, how did you decide not to go the online way?
I think it was based off of just opportunity, and I feel like it's not like there isn't like some path that's. I mean, that I online makes a lot of sense now. It even then, even a few years ago, it wasn't as just. It wasn't so automated. It wasn't. Yeah, it was a little bit like. Yeah, it was a little bit more, and really that came down to we had our friend came up to us and was like, Linda Wardell at City Creek. I cut her hair. She's really cool. She just needs one person to come in there. Are you guys in? And we're like, we've never done retail. Like, this is crazy. But she's like, come on, do it. Like, it's gonna be the coolest thing. And when it opened up, she's like, here's an opportunity for you guys. And we were just sitting around like, like, what should, like, okay, well, we'll give them this rent number and it's really low, but like, we don't know anything about retail, and we'll go to IKEA and buy a bunch of those boxes, and it will, I guess that'll be cool. Like, but it will be a good way to see if people like our swimsuits off the consignment website. And so we're like, okay, we'll do it. But it didn't make sense. I mean, even at that time, it would have made sense to go online traditionally. But I think it's more like you got to find your best opportunity, and you got to see what assets you have. I mean, you could look at us and be like, well, come on, like, you guys had a sewing factory. Like, how hard is that? Like, obviously, you guys just made your company. But if you had seen it at the time, it was like, we got to fill this factory. We got to find all this work. And like, yeah, we could make 100 units and sell them, but that's not going to make us anything. Like, just look in your life, and maybe there's some assets that you have. I think it's just like using the best opportunity you have. And sometimes that's like right out in front of you. Like when somebody comes up to us and says, do retail, or maybe it's something that's not so just out there that you guys can like dig through and find that's like your own little thing that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your how to find the capital? Because you said at the beginning the business is not
American Express.
Yeah, Visa.
Yeah.
No, it was really at the beginning. We factored. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's, you when you ship, you get the airway bill, and they'll pay you 80% of your invoices.
But that was when we worked with other companies. That's
yeah,
not
but
how
I
we
mean,
found the capital for Albion.
Yeah, but you're right. But it was like, it cost a lot for the money that we borrowed at first, and I think there's a lot more ways now than even back then that you can get money. There's like angel investors, and maybe, our partner Mike you could probably expound on this, but there is people out there now that love this sort of thing. And if you have a good idea, money shouldn't be a problem to get. I would say just make sure that whatever you do, just make a good foundation to where whatever thing you take on, the number one, you're going to have influence and you're going to love it. Whatever, maybe you go in, and it's not a bad thing, like, to partner up with somebody, or it's not a bad thing to have somebody come in and help you with financially too. Just make sure that whoever you're doing it with, you love to be there, and overall you look at the future and you say, I still have as much love as I have bringing all these other people in, if that makes sense.
So when you sell your product, how often can you clear your bill? I mean, like, for example, you have your own store, or you sell it to a retail store and you sell it.
Yeah, no, we did do wholesale for maybe the first year of Albion, and even before we opened the first retail location. But we've chosen to just go the retail route because we do feel like we have more control over inventory management that way. And what's really cool is our girls, we have a really great situation where, if we want to get rid of something, we just have our girls wear it, and they're just like these walking mannequins, and they love the product, and so it's a really easy way for just to burn through it. We've tried really hard not to do sales at Albion. Like, that's never been. We feel like the price that we sell our product for is the price that it should be sold for, and so, maybe twice a year we have like an end of year sale, or during the holidays we plan for that, but we don't do steep discounts. We're very, very careful with our inventory management, and a huge asset is the factory too. We're not stuck with really high minimums like a lot of other people are. We can sew very small quantities of things that enable us to see if something works or not, and if it does, then we produce more, and if it doesn't, then we know that we can burn through whatever we need to.
In terms of turnover for your product, is it fast?
Yeah, really, really fast.
And
freaky
overall,
fast.
Well, overall, that's a good thing. The more you guys can, even if it means it costs a little bit more, the more you can minimize that risk at the start, because it's kind of like there's this curve of like right when you launch something, all your friends, they take pity on us and they buy all their stuff, or like there's hype, and then there's like this like curve that probably is going to go down, even if your product's awesome. After that little initial hype, you're not going to see it, and people are going to test you. And it's weird, but it's like, are these guys gonna be around? Well, we'll see. We'll give them like 3 months. And then after that 3 months, then it's like, people start believing in your brand. And that's when you see this, like, these people who are like your core customers start showing up. But you just have to weather that storm. And I think you can get caught up in like these huge projections. And it's almost like, you're probably gonna make half as much as you project. And it's probably gonna cost you twice as much. And if you can do that math, and you're still coming out okay, probably you're gonna do okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm going to bring back the flower bomber jacket.
We have some really good things coming up, I will say, next week. Some oldies but goodies.
Yeah.
So I would just check in on the website. I think you're gonna like what you see. Yeah.
I just, when you said about the 5-year plan, I think because times change, they say 5-year plan is out nowadays. The fact that you control so much and you're sticking with what you've known for so many years, it helps you pivot so much faster. So I think you don't really need a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
I mean, you just pivot and test your products and switch as you need.
It feels good. I feel like there's little things that happen that we feel validated about, retail's dead, but we're trying to open up retail stores, and then you hear like, well, retail's good if you're in the best malls in the country, and that's really what we've been trying to do. And retail is good if you don't try to open up 100 stores, and if you've got like these core cities and like core communities that you're building and creating a great customer experience, because it helps influence your online purchasing. And so I feel like somehow we're doing it right. I don't know. It's worked out. Any other questions? Yeah.
So you guys are online. Do you guys only sell to the U.S. market, or do you guys like outside the U.S.?
Yeah, we sell all over the world. We have our own warehouse. That's something that we've decided to keep in-house too. We don't use a third party. We do it all in-house with our own team. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
So this is a personal question, so sorry if it comes off a little heat. But I am just wondering, I'm a huge fan of your product, and I'm just wondering, like in the retail world, I want to know like what this is like from your perspective, but as kind of like a thicker girl, like it's really hard to find clothes and quality clothes as well. And like I was looking at it, and it looks like, you know, like the average height is like 5'6", and like 170 is the average weight, and like so that'd be like a 14 or 16 size wise. And so I'm just like wondering, like, what about the girls who like pasta? You know, and then one of your points was like find opportunity where others don't. And I'm wondering, like, why is that not a thing in like retail? Like, why is it so hard? You know?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I feel like, you know, there's good and there's bad in social media, you know, and I feel like going back to the analytics, it's hard because we do look at data and you see like, you know, which pictures perform better and which products perform better, and like you're looking at all that data, and then at the same time you're like in your heart you're like, well, I love pasta, you know, like I don't, you know, like, and I feel the same way. I feel like there's a lot of brands where, you know, one of the founders or the designers is like really at the forefront of the company, you know, like, and they're like promoting themselves and doing all these things, and Dave and I haven't really chosen to do that, and I don't know if it's because we're self-conscious or if it's, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a lot of factors in there that determine what it is that you're putting out there, and there's a factor of like, you know, do our customers see what themselves, but then there's also like, we're not really showing a lot of ourselves out there too. And what's been really cool for us this year is our photographer, her name is Jessica Janae, and she is awesome, and she loves pasta. I mean, if that's the phrase that we want to use, but she's a little thicker, you know, but she's beautiful and she's confident, and it's been really fun to have her model for us this year too, not just be behind the camera, but to be a representative of us. And it's cool to see, you know, how can we show, there's so many ways that there's diversity, right? Like, I mean, there's race and there's size and there's a million different things. And one of the things that we really are trying to do more of this year is to figure out, how do we find all the models that we need to be able to represent the people so that they feel more comfortable buying our product? And it's crazy just how many boxes there are to check off if we really want to make sure that everyone is represented. But we are definitely trying to make more of a concerted effort in that, because I'll say one of the reasons why we did do our own swim line and fitness line is because I gained 120 pounds with my twins. Like, I was pushing 230, you know, like I was a big girl, and there wasn't a lot of product out there for us to use, and it was cool to be able to design clothes that fit me and that I felt comfortable in and that I felt good about, you know. So we may not be doing as good of a job at it right now, but I can promise you that it is something that, it's definitely something that's a priority for us, and we want to make sure that it's something that we do, because we want everyone to feel loved,
we feel like
you
it's
know?
an opportunity to, I mean, that is, and you guys should look for those opportunities, because there's an opportunity there that we could capitalize on.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, follow-up. Yeah. So that wasn't necessarily like a criticism of your company or like even like models you're using, but it's kind of, I've noticed like it's a, you know, a wider problem. And I know that you guys do offer some like larger sizes on some of your things online, and then but like, you know, like in store it's a lot harder, and that's same, you know, across the board. So I'm wondering, like, is it actually like a problem? Is it like
Logistically, it's all ends of the spectrum, because we have that problem with the smaller sizes. Like, it's hard to carry extra smalls in the store too, at the store in talls and in petites and in regulars, because when you have, you know, we have 4 stores now plus a warehouse. So that's 5 different places that you have to have product in. But when you're producing units, you do them all, it is so complicated, because when
But I would say it's
Yeah.
more like, you know, like we were talking about those skirts, and they did, you know, that wasn't my vision, and that wasn't Liz's vision for those skirts to turn out how they were. My vision was like, it was gonna have this, and there was gonna be like a pocket for a tennis ball, and like all these things. And I think it's the same way with that. Like, it's like, we have these stores, and it was a big deal for us to split into 2 stores to get the logistics of the inventory. But like where our heads at, and like the ideal is something more along lines of what you're saying, where we do have other sizes, but it's just this journey we're on to like get to there. And there's always gonna be stuff that's better. And what our thing is like, are we are we being proactive, and how quickly can we do that, I guess.
Yeah.